Welcome to Decoding the Digital Lab, brought to you by CSols Incorporated. I'm your host, Lisa Richard, and today we're happy to have Veronica DeFelice, a biologics subject matter expert with over a decade of experience, join us. As the Director of Biologics at Sapio Sciences, Veronica and her colleagues are building solutions that help organizations seamlessly connect vast amounts of scientific data to help accelerate the delivery of treatments to patients. Today, we're going to drill into the challenges of precision and tracking of biological data and overcoming these through the deployment of scalable platforms. Veronica, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course, we're glad for it. Why don't we get things started off with your view of the biological complexities with data integrity that scientists are facing?
Yeah, I think the biological complexity with data integrity involves a lot of systematic tracking and molecular modifications and variations while connecting laboratory experimental outcomes, specifically with the computational predictions. And that encompasses a lot of the impact of genomic and proteomic and also gene expression data with the exact research outcomes. So to be able to have the complexity of that data be transferred forward and illuminated on, we can really see that in different tracking mechanisms to ensure data integrity.
When we think about the challenges that they face, is it in the execution of the experimentation? Is it in the uniqueness of the data? Is it in the sort of collation of it? Where's kind of the crux of the challenge that they face?
I think for my observation, I think specifically being a scientist and having that as my background, I think that the most difficulty that we see in a lot of different client conversations and also in my prior experience really roots in data silos and how not really the experimental execution, but being able to connect the data together and build experimental conclusions that have a sense of reliability and traceability, and to be able to draw those insights that are very foundational to building a therapeutic.
So, in looking at the challenges that they face, and I think you mentioned a little bit data silos. And so, when we look at the biologics in particular, and in sort of where we head with platforms, talk about those challenges and how they're kind of overcome from a collaboration perspective, or elaborate further on what those challenges are from that perspective.
So I think specifically in a unified laboratory platform where collaboration really can eliminate a lot of the issues with not being able to see the different results per process. And when you have a collaboration, a platform centralized and collaborative, you're able to look at the different types of results in reference to the different companies, even outside of your company that might be needing the samples, or even internally, whether it's a biologics group or whether it's a small molecule group or whether it's a group working at specifically analytical characterization or more process development. In a digital sense, you can see the entire research platform and how the integrated laboratory informatics can be transferred from each point. So it becomes comprehensive, but also can get detailed once you get into each of the results, and even how the experiment was conducted can be illuminated in a digital platform.
Yeah, I'm thinking of some experiences that I've had where that's one of the biggest challenges, right? So it's the respect for the scientific needs of each science, right? Biologics,
Right.
chemistry, each of them, but also the respect for the collaboration that's needed, right? How do we share that information? How do we access it so that it can really drive decisions? So, in that vein, I think in the beginning we were speaking about the precision and accuracy of the data, right? So, can you give a little bit of conversation around how that collected data analysis can actually drive more precision in the discovery process or in the decision making around it?
Yeah, I think that, for example, in biological data, there's so many variations that occur. And to be able to ensure the precision and the accuracy throughout complex experimental workflows, you need to be able to go back and see the different modifications, as well as understand the insights that you gather from each process output. So in a digital sense, we can have an input, let's say, about a biological structure, but an output would be about that function. So, and the precision nature of it, you can really be able to weed out in a digital sense. We weed out things that are inconsistent, or it flags if something is not appropriate, or you can analyze just for yourself, and that really sets in the scientist, and that also shines light on the scientist being in control, because the scientist can really be able to look at, let's say, a sequence, and even though the digital platform is essentially analyzing it, like for example, a multiple sequence alignment in a molecular biology tool, you can see the different sequence alignment and you see all the different annotations, but then I can go in as a scientist and I can make the decisions if I say, okay, this nucleotide I really think has the point mutation, and then I can move onward. So it gives you a level of clarity, but not to the point where you override the decision making of the scientist. So I think that is a precision point. But the analysis and the different types of tools that are used to gather certain insights are really helpful to the precision nature of building a therapeutic.
I think that's amazing. One of the things that resonated with what you said is a key challenge that I hear often with scientists is there's so much data and there's so many permutations of that data as they move through the optimization process. Being able to decipher and quickly target which pieces of information will feed into the next decision, but
Yeah,
still having that traceability. And I
right.
think that's a huge value that you've kind of shined the light on, per se, of these platforms. And so I really appreciate that. When we look at kind of a real case, is there any real case that you've worked on with the deployment of these platforms and the scientific value of outcomes, and kind of take us through that so we can sort of see that in the real world?
Yeah, and I think that this having like segueing off of the data infrastructure, which we just spoke about, and really leveraging digital twins to in a scalable way.
Okay.
For example, monoclonal antibody creation processes, when you optimize clone selection and scale up efficiency through informatics platforms, and then you adapt to that research demands. For example, if there needs to be another library preparation step, or there needs to be better expression data that comes, you can redo, or you can have different assays be implemented. So it's very, very adaptable. However, that's a really good example of something that we could model in the platform, and you can build a monoclonal antibody from start to finish, and you can be able to really illuminate on each process that goes into it, and each even experiment, but also if there's any different equipment that needs to be integrated, or their equipment software that needs to be integrated within that step, can be very, very important and shine light on a digital environment where you can just pinpoint each part
Mhm.
that you're at, and also work with your colleagues. I think that's a big point as well.
So I want to zero in on one aspect. So when we sort of think of the art of science, right, and the art of drug discovery, and then we want to apply digital systems in, there's sort of this hesitancy and fear that I'm going to be locked into a structure or approach. And
Right.
can you speak a little bit from a sort of the scientist view of how flexible or customizable are these platforms to be able to accommodate that constant pivoting that has to happen as you're moving through the optimization process?
Yeah, I think that through being able to make decisions on each of the processes, we really can, as the scientist, choose what module or what
Mm.
plugin you need. And we don't chain, or I think that it's important not to force or make anybody be able to do everything of the workflow. So it's important that they have autonomy in what they feel is important for their workflow. For example, if uh, an automated process doesn't work for them, and they really say, I really only need everything from library generation to purification, or if I really only want to look at high throughput screening and continuous assay development, and I really want to look at just my plasmid or my vector modification construct, that can be a choice and a selection for them, and we welcome that. I think that it's really important to be able to choose, and then know that we also have these capabilities that can accommodate a whole end-to-end workflow.
Mhm.
So it's definitely very customizable to a process, for example, like that is a monoclonal antibody, or even other things, for example, like cell and gene therapy, or looking at virtual cloning, or just bioprocessing. There are a few
Yeah.
modules that can stand alone, And so it's important that we have a continuous process, but also be able to directly help something that we can accommodate in our ecosystem in a platform like this.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I want to focus on the data piece that you mentioned, but I want to ask, do you find that these platforms, again, there's the execution and the benefit to the operational use of these systems to aid in the process. And then there's the benefit in the end, which I want to get into later, which is really how we use the data, right? How can we enable AI or use that to drive the decision making? But sticking to kind of the operational aspect and the need for the scientists to kind of evolve as they go or do continuous monitoring, as you say, do you find that these platforms support both, or do you find that they really support kind of that end value decision making drive that we're heading towards?
I think that digital platforms can really support continuous
Okay.
modification and also having an integrated platform that integrates very seamlessly into a scientist's workflow makes them feel at ease while also understanding that there is a lot of decision making like you really shine light on that the scientist has to make decisions on what can happen next or what the next process should be or if the data makes sense in a certain way or it needs to be pre-generated. And I think something that a digital platform really can help with is it can help it could feel like the operations behind the scenes aren't at the forefront of the scientists, and so the scientists can really just focus on the science.
Okay. I can see a lot of value. I'm sort of thinking in my head of lots of folks that I've spoken to that I would want to cuss and connect them
Oh, that's so nice.
to this. But when we look at, so we talked about the sort of the precision and accuracy and how it helps that. We also talked about the collaborative need, and it's not just biologics, it's not just chemistry, right?
Right.
There's sort of a drive to putting it all together. And one of the key reasons for that is when you have all that data in a standard platform or a standardized format, you now can enable the next value of technology, right? Which everyone's talking about AI and how we can use that to sort of speed up outcomes or enable better decision making. And so, can you sort of shed a little more light on that and how you pull all of this conversation together to sort of show how that can drive and benefit sort of using AI on the data,
Yeah, I
or
think that
predictive modeling, like you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I think that one example I could think of that really drives, for example, prediction of molecular behavior and also drug efficacy is for a complex therapeutic like antibody drug conjugates, which is really having that biologic coupled with the small molecule while it's enabling the de novo protein design and different digital concepts that can help the therapeutic candidates. So from a digital sense, then to wet lab environment. And to me, I mean, I really think that AI amplifies scientific discovery by handling that computational complexity and the pattern recognition, like you said, while keeping researchers in full control of things like experimental design, hypothesis generation, critical decision making points throughout the therapeutic development process. So I think it really assists scientists while the scientist is in control.
I think that's a great way to put it. I was reading an article about the notion of AI and enabling better decision making versus AI allowing you to make better decisions. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, what you're trying to do is sort of increase the visibility and increase the understanding so that better decisions can be made. But it's not making the decision for you, right? It's helping you drive that. And so I think that was an excellent point. We're kind of running out of time, so I want to leave you with the opportunity to share what you want the listeners to leave with. What's kind of the key point you want them to take home about this notion of using scalable platforms to enable better biologics?
Yeah, I think that being able to have a scalable platform and do things with biologics and be able to do each different process within biologics, but also be able to be in control of the digital environment in reference to the wet lab and the science I think holds a very special point. And as we advance in different scientific domains, like for example, in small molecule or chemistry, or even in different other biologic environments, like in analytical characterization or process development, the way that we can see things very clearly and the lineage and the hierarchy of all of our different processes and referencing them back I think is really important in developing a therapeutic.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Decoding the Digital Lab with CSols Incorporated. Join us next time and hit the follow button if you're enjoying this content. Thanks so much for joining.